Hello, my name is Katie MacIntyre, and I'm your host for the video podcast, The Loving Cup, Elevate Your Gratitude. Today is Friday, November 30th, 2018. We're live from the FingerLakes1.com studios in Seneca Falls, New York, so welcome. I wanted to start off today with an article that I came across, and it is the last day of November, and often people spend a lot of time thinking about gratitude in the month of November. And this article is on Forbes.com, so you can Google it, and it's called How Showing Gratitude Even When You Don't Feel Grateful Can Help Your Career. And I thought that this was an important thing, especially as people tend to be quite busier around this time of year, and sometimes at work maybe we're not as grateful as we could be. So the author goes on through a couple of tips, but one thing that she calls out for people to try is that you don't need to wait around for people to do something that seemed worthy of gratitude. You can really push yourself to look for opportunities to be grateful in every experience that you have. So there's some tips in there. So if you have a chance, go ahead and Google that and have a read. And I wanted to jump in and welcome my guests today. So we have Bob and Linda McKeveny of Seneca Falls here with us today. So welcome to you both.
Welcome.
It's good to have you both here. So let's start with having you introduce the other. So Bob, would you introduce us to Linda?
So it is my pleasure to introduce my lovely wife, Linda McKeveny. We've been married for 36 years. Linda has been a lifetime teacher. She currently is a teacher at Minders Academy in Seneca Falls, where she is a Spanish teacher and the department chair for the foreign language department. She is also a mom to 3 kids, all grown, and a grandmother to a 1-year-old grandson.
Beautiful. And would you introduce us to Bob, Linda?
All right, this is my husband, Bob McKeveny. He's originally from Brooklyn, New York, which many people don't know since he's lost his accent. We met, he went to SUNY Geneseo, where we met. He's been an educator for 38 years. He was an elementary school teacher. He taught every grade K-6. Then became a principal of an elementary school here, Frank Knight, and then the middle school principal, and now he's the superintendent of schools. He's an avid sports fan.
Beautiful. I didn't know all of those different things about you, Bob, so that's great. I learned something new too. So again, welcome to you both. Let's talk about something that you're most grateful for in the past year. And either of you can go first.
So I think it's pretty easy. It's a little bit more than a year, but we had the great joy of welcoming our first grandson. And so our son Matt and his wife Jessie have a son, Finn West McKeveny. And so we've taken great joy and gratitude in having him as a grandson during the past year.
Beautiful.
Also this year, we were lucky enough that our daughter got engaged, and so we'll be welcoming Matt, his name's Matt Clevin, into our family next October. So it's something we're definitely grateful for also.
Wonderful, wonderful. And how about if you think about your whole life? Is there something that bubbles to the top?
So I am extremely grateful for having a loving wife and a level of support from my wife. I don't feel that I could do the job that I do now or even throughout the course of my career. So like she talked about when I was a teacher, well, I also was a coach after school, so I wasn't home a lot. Our kids were young. And so the fact of the matter is she was always supportive in my endeavors then. And even now, where I have a job that I love greatly, but it's all in all the time, and I don't feel that I could do the job that I do without the love and support from her, and also that solid foundation that is so important behind people that do jobs like that. So I am extremely grateful, will forever be grateful for that love and support.
Family first, being grateful, but second of all, I am so grateful that I was a teacher. I love teaching. I'm at a point at the end of my career, and you think 30 some odd years, and it's like how many students or individuals you touched, and it's sometimes ways you you don't think it is. It's not maybe teaching them. I'm a Spanish teacher. It's not teaching them Spanish, but maybe they remember that, they were having a tough day and you stayed and you listened to whatever their problems were. So I'm thankful for all the students I've had over my career.
That's beautiful. And it's true. You don't know which moment you're making an impact.
So for both of us, I can remember the day when, as a teacher, someone tapped me and said, you really should consider administration or a principal where you deal with more than 20 or 25 students every day. And so, I took that advice and pursued that option. And, I'm a big believer that fate takes you where you belong. And so that journey landed us in Seneca Falls in 1992. And so I remember I had the opportunity, in my younger 30s to serve as principal of Frank Knight Elementary School. And it just so happened that we landed in Seneca Falls. And I remember going to an interview, kind of a funny story, and Linda dropped me off because we had to drive about an hour and a half to get here. She said, I'll go ride around the town and see what kind of a fit this is for us.
And I had all 3 little kids in the car, the youngest being a year and a half.
And so I went in for the interview, came back, and she pulled up, and the interview happened to be up at Minders at the high school. Got in the car, and she said, this would be a great place to live and a great place to raise kids. And I said, forget it, because I bombed the interview.
Oh, no.
So little did I know the people that were on the interview committee were pretty much programmed and conditioned not to give any nonverbal cues or any nonverbal feedback. So I really couldn't tell how I did.
That's tough.
Obviously, I must have done okay because I ended up getting the position and we landed in Seneca Falls. And I would say that it's pretty easy for both of us to say that we're very grateful for landing in this town. That, we came here in 1992, we thought, we don't know if this will be our home, we'll be here. And here we are, in 2018, and now our daughter lives here with her fiance. And this truly is our home, that we have roots here. And so that's been great for us.
That's awesome. That's awesome. It's a beautiful place to call home, so you're lucky. Can we talk about something that you're most grateful for in the other? We touched on it a little bit, but if we can talk about that a little bit more.
So I'm grateful for Linda's ability to kind of see the bigger picture. Sometimes I get pretty myopic and kind of focused on one thing. And she's always been able to ground me by seeing the bigger picture and knowing that there's more to that. And so that's very helpful to me. So we talked before about we've had 8 exchange students. Well, that's because of her influence on that and knowing that there's a great value to that. So being able to kind of have a broader perspective is number one. And so I think that's been very helpful. The other thing I'm most grateful for is that, she's gone through some health issues, and through that, she's been able to be really strong. And so what I've learned from some of those things is that my hardest days at work or in life are not hard compared to the things that she dealt with. And so I learned a lot about courage and strength from that, and probably more than I've probably ever even told her, but that has always stuck with me. And so I'm grateful for those 2 things.
Wonderful. How about for you?
Sort of similar, but he is probably the most calm person. He is the best problem solver. He can see things very, he doesn't get all emotional, whereas, maybe I'm a woman, I'll get all emotional, but he stays very calm. And, if there's a problem, he's the person you want there. He's at school, at home, anywhere, because you can depend on him. He will make decisions, he will stay calm, and he's like a rock.
That's
you
super.
Can depend on that rock.
But not on the inside.
Well, on the outside, he's definitely in the situation.
Yeah, no, I've had the chance to work with Bob on a couple of different projects, and it's been great. It's been really great. So what about, can you share how you met? So you were at SUNY Geneseo.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Is there a great story about the day you met?
Well, he lived in a dorm where a friend of mine lived, and and he was an education major, and in those days, and an elementary education major, there weren't a lot of guys.
So he was a rare bird, right?
Yeah, he was one of the few guys in the education classes. So all of us girls were checking him out, let me tell you, and everything. So my friend introduced us. We played some racquetball together. I just kept pursuing him.
It was just one of those things that evolved. So
Yeah.
the thing is, I just was the type of person that would not think that she would even pay attention to me. And so the ability to just talk and let things evolve was really very helpful. So like her friend Camille, who lived in the dorm, obviously, kind of was the facilitator of that process. And so, it worked out for the best.
Wonderful. So can you talk about your career a little bit and what you're most grateful for in your careers?
So I always say this when I give presentations. I'm a teacher, and so that was my interest in pursuing a career. So I remember that well, as Linda said, I'm an avid sports fan, so I know that when I was the oldest of 5, and I used to coach Little League teams for my younger brother. And so I really enjoyed doing that, but I enjoyed the teaching part of that. So like I was in high school, he'd still be in Little League. But even as I went to college, I still had some of that interest. And even when I began teaching, I still was coaching, and I love the teaching part of that. And I also love teaching elementary school because you get to teach reading, you get to really form young people. And so that was really interesting to me. So I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that I'm a teacher. My career path happened to take me to the point where I was able to be a principal. And so for 4 years, I got to be a principal at Frank Knight School, a K-2 school. And at one point, the Board of Education of the district said, we need you to go to the middle school. And I ended up spending 12 years in the middle school, and then obviously they tapped me and said, we'd like you to consider the superintendency here. So I'm grateful that I'll in all those positions, I don't ever want to lose sight of the fact that I'm a teacher. And so to be able to make that connection with students, with teachers in the district, and even parents in the community so that they know that I'm a teacher. The other thing is, as far as my career goes, that I'm thankful for, pretty much 27 of the 38 years, or at least my entire administrative career, I was able to do it in one district. And that's not normal. I have a lot of colleagues, and the lifespan, say, of a superintendent is 4 years. And then you're ending up in a different position, or it's another superintendency in another district. I just feel fortunate to have that consistency, and that it was in this town, which has been so special to both of us. So those two things.
Wonderful.
Well,
for you, Linda?
It's interesting because I started out being an elementary teacher, but I had a Spanish because I had been an exchange student myself. And so I always thought I was going to be an elementary teacher. I started out as an elementary teacher, and then when Bob got the position here in Seneca Falls was the first I had to give up a teaching position to come here, and I was I think I was a second grade teacher. And I thought, I'll stay home for a little while because my daughter, the youngest, was only about a year and a half. Everyone was transitioning. So, I gave it a couple of years. Everyone got settled, bought a house, all of that stuff. So I said, I'm going to go back to teaching. Well, I couldn't get, at that time, an elementary teaching job because it was just extremely competitive. But since I had the Spanish, I put in to get my certification to be a high school teacher, and I never thought in a million years I'd be a high school teacher. But now, if I look back at it, if they said, you can go back and be an elementary teacher, I wouldn't trade it at all. So, things work out for the best.
I love that.
She's extremely popular. If we go to the stores or a restaurant, you can hear from a few booths over, Senora! Or even if kids are walking by the house, they're yelling, Senora! So,
do you want to hear about popularity? One time we went over to Friendly's in Geneva, my husband and I were having dinner, and all these little kids kept coming up to our table to say hi to him. And this one, and then this other little one, and another little kid would come up. And the couple that was sitting next to us, who we didn't know, said, who are you? Are you someone famous? Everybody keeps coming up and saying hi to you. And I'm like, he's the superintendent. He goes, most districts, little kids don't know who their superintendent is. But
well, Bob, you're very visible.
It was so cute.
And I think that's part and parcel of our ability to land in this town.
Yeah, or to stay in this town, live in the town.
We've taken advantage of the opportunities that have presented themselves to us, and hopefully we've paid that back as well in our professions, and I'm sure we will continue to do that through the service organizations we belong to now and as we retire, because we've reaped the benefits of being here, and hopefully it's gone both ways. I think we both feel that.
Yeah, I think I can speak for the community and say, yes, it's definitely both ways. That's super. And it's awesome that you'll be able to celebrate that together.
Yes.
It's hard to think about. So like we're both going to retire at the end of the year, and here it is November 30th. So I get asked that a lot. I had promised the board I would give them a year's notice so that they could find a replacement, and that I believe that the school district and this community deserves an effective transition. So if the board can identify that next person by March, they won't start till July, but there can be effective transitioning. But knowing that I had to give that year's notice, it's kind of a roller coaster of a ride this year, because people will say, are you ready? Are you ready? I'm not ready because I'm still all in all the time.
Right.
So I haven't really even thought about that. It's like I've had colleagues who will say, how many board meetings do you have left? How many of this do you have left? How many of that? I don't know.
Right.
But I'm sure as it gets closer to the end, some of those feelings will start to take hold, probably for both of us. We'll feel great about working in the district that we did, but I'm sure there'll be sadness about, kind of coming to the end of the career.
Yeah, it's bittersweet. I don't know if it's because it's my last year teaching, but I keep saying to myself, this is the best group of kids I've ever had. And I don't know if it's just because it's the last year, but it really has been a wonderful group of kids. So it's a bittersweet year. It's good and it's bad.
Yeah.
And to reinforce that, I've always said, even with the school district here, it's a school district that's made up of great people, not buildings, right? And so that includes students and staff and parents and community and partners. And so that's what's made it a great relationship for both of us with the community that we've lived in.
Yeah, and your sports teams are doing pretty fantastic, aren't they?
Yeah.
So
and those are the public programs. So there's a lot of great things that happen. So like even inside the walls of the buildings every day. But the public programs are what the people see. So we take great pride in that. Not only do they do well, they're scholar athlete teams. They get sportsmanship awards. Our performing arts, there's people that will argue that the performing arts in the school district is just as strong as the athletics. But if you walk in the buildings and you get to see what's going on in the classrooms, and I'll gloat for Linda, who's probably got the most authentic learning that's going on in the district right now, where she has her kids sending videos back and forth to students in Argentina, and the students in Argentina sending videos back to her students. That's authentic Spanish learning.
That's awesome.
And so those are great things, but they're not our public programs. So we have to take advantage of social media and the platforms that we have to promote that. And so if you go on Twitter and you see all the things that are going on, and even if you're not on Twitter, you can follow the district on the front page of the website and see all the great things that teachers are doing in all the buildings. So the public programs get a lot of the attention, which is great. But I would say that what's going on inside the building, kids are in a really good place.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you both for doing that. I have two little ones I have a second grader, so I understand that age, like that magical age of when kids learn to read, and it's a beautiful thing as a parent to witness, but I bet as a teacher,
Exactly.
It's really powerful.
Yes.
Exactly.
And it opens up a whole world.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
I think if I had to give up my ability to read, I would be very, very sad.
Yeah.
So
it's taken for granted.
Yeah, it is.
So.
Can you share with me something about the community that you mentioned that when you came here with Bob for the interview that you drove around and you liked it? Are there things that over the years that you're just you find are just things that you're really grateful for about this area, this region?
Well, it's a beautiful region, and it's nice because it's very centrally located to so many things. And you have the lakes. You can go to Rochester. You can go to Syracuse. You can go to Ithaca. There's anything you want, but you don't have to. You're not living in a big city. You have the advantage of living in a small town, but you have the advantages of big city living not too far away from you, and everything. It's a lovely Four Seasons. I think it's very. What I saw when I first came was it was very pro-children. So, having 3 little kids at the time. We came from a small town that really didn't have much. We were living in Warsaw, New York at the time.
Okay.
And this had a rec center and had kids' territory. It had the lake and the parks, and it had a lot to offer.
And I can't remember, it was one of our parents when they were here, they were very struck by the fact that you could walk down the street and people say hello to you. Yeah. And it's just, it was that type of friendliness that struck people that come from other places. That's just a culture that we live in, and that's still here. And so the mix of the openness of people that really welcomed us here, along with, as Linda said, the hiking, the biking, the parks, the lakes, along with some of the history and some of the culture pieces that you really don't have to go far for. And for us that grew up on both ends of the state, as she said, the location turned out to be kind of perfect for taking our kids to see their grandparents on both parts of the state.
So when you moved here, were your parents still in Brooklyn?
My parents are on Long Island.
Long Island, okay.
Right.
And I'm from Buffalo.
Oh, okay,
so
definitely opposite ends of the state.
Right.
And it's a big state.
It is.
Yes.
So we've seen all parts
location.
of it. And we feel very fortunate that we live where we do.
I understand completely. I'm a transplant. I grew up in New Hampshire, but I love Central New York and really love this area.
Yeah.
So do you or did you teach gratitude to your children?
Yeah. I'm a believer that you teach by example those things. And so the fact of the matter is, whether I'm in a school and I'm going to be the one to hold the door open for a kid, that in turn over time, that kid's going to start holding the door open or saying thank you. So I'm asked to be the speaker at the middle school graduation every year. So one of the things I have started doing is having the 8th graders go out in the audience and say thank you to their parents and say thank you to a teacher, because it's a skill and maybe a lost art. So maybe indirectly by modeling, but also by example, yeah.
Same thing. I think we've tried to bring up our children just to see the positive rather than, of any situation, discussions, family dinners, they start complaining, well, try to turn it around and see a positive of a situation. Or, you have situations where they're tough, but you can learn a lot of positive things from them also.
Yeah.
It makes you stronger. Sometimes failure's good, and,
True. And that's perspective. And sometimes in that moment, we may not feel grateful for it, which actually leads me to my next question. So I'm curious if there's something in your life that at the time you were not grateful for, but looking back, you're now grateful for it.
I'll let you go first.
Well, as you said, I've dealt with breast cancer twice. Once was, but then when I was 5 years free and clear, and then the second one, so that was kind of a kick in the stomach. But you get through it, and then there was a lot of good things, like all the teachers at school. Everyone brought every day. We had a meal brought to our house during the time when I was going through chemo and things like that. So you got to see a lot of very positive things also. And now that it's far enough behind, it's you have a better outlook on it.
So I would say the same thing, but it's being grateful for the small things that you maybe take for granted. So Bernie Pacino retired from the district a few years back. So we always recognize the teachers that retire. And I remember Linda said, I want to come that night. I want to just watch. And so we recognized Bernie, and she raised her hand, can I say something? And she said, I just want to be able to say thank you to Mrs. Pacino, because during Molly's 3rd grade year, she drove her home every day. And that's one of those things we would have probably never thought to say thank you.
Well, she would keep her after school to keep her mind busy, so she wouldn't worry and keep her busy.
And so it's little things like that. And
I love that.
That's powerful. And so to know that, she taught her reading and writing and math and everything else, but she also did things to help our family. And so the fact of the matter is, you got to pay it back. And as Linda said, now it's our job to pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
That's awesome. I love that. And I hope that folks who are listening think about that and think about ways that, we all have two hands. So what can we do with these hands to help others and make it easier? And perhaps that teacher didn't think that it was a big deal, but to you, that was critical.
It was a big deal to my daughters.
Well, and as Linda said, the outpouring of support from the community that we never expected was overwhelming, with dinners every night, with gifts, with gift cards, and it taught a lot, including the rest of our two boys. And so I think we all learned a lot as a family about that, and not to take small things for granted.
I love that. That's the really, really good advice. So is there something that you each do, like a gratitude practice? Are there things that you do that you want to share? If not, it's okay.
No, nothing in particular, but I try to do things to at least say thank you when people don't expect it, or I try to model that sometimes when I'm teaching. But not in particular, not like a conscious way of doing that.
Okay.
Sometimes I think we're just so busy in our lives that I feel I'm very busy that sometimes I just try to stop and just enjoy the moment.
Yes.
Whatever that moment happens to be. Just breathe, just look around, just think about this for a few minutes and then go on with whatever's the next thing on the list.
Yes. No, that's perfect. And I think especially, tomorrow's December, and it's kind of a month where things are always keeping us moving, and there's always more to do than we feel like we have time to do. But I love that, like just taking a moment to stop. Things are still going to get done, but if you can have peace in your heart and peace with yourself, it's going to.
And that was evident right before Thanksgiving. We hosted a lot of people. We were really busy. And about a week before that, we agreed every day to kind of say to each other, one day at a time.
Yeah. Everything
and it just kept us grounded.
Everything was good.
And positive.
That's great. So we have just a couple of minutes. I wanted to ask you to share something that you've done together that's just a fabulous memory, something that you'll never forget. If you could share that quickly.
Well, we have several. We like to travel. So we've been several places. We've been to Hawaii a couple times, and San Francisco was the Grand Canyon was a wonderful trip.
I love those trips because it gets you away from the busyness of the day-to-day stuff where you get distracted. And Linda will always say, I have to leave this town in order for that to happen.
Yes.
Otherwise, the job's 24/7, like I said, all in all the time. So I've really valued those. She's taken a lot more trips without me. So I'm looking forward to catching up a little bit. But, hiking and doing those things together were great memories.
Awesome. Well, I hope that once you're done with your work and you're all in, that you guys both together have time to make awesome new memories of traveling around the world, wherever you want to go.
It's a big world out there.
It is, and there's lots to see.
Yes.
It's exciting. So I hope you have a happy holiday and happy Merry Christmas. Thank you for coming on the show today.
Thank you.
Same to you. You're very kind.
So that does bring us to the end of our time today, and wanted to just say again, thank you to Bob and Linda McKeveny for coming on the show and sharing about gratitude and their lives. And tune in next week. We'll have 2 more guests with us. But until then, be well and share your gratitude. Have a great day.